Twitter guys you got? You got a lot of followers.
A little too many. It kind of freaks me out sometimes, man. Because I don't know. I never really did anything to kind of build a following. It's just like with some of these things on social media, they figure out these algorithms and they just go crazy. So
Yes.
I know around the time it kind of blew up, I think it was around COVID. And so everybody's kind of putting out things, clinicking. I know me and a couple of my friends, we did, a clinic spur of the moment that ended up going really well. And it's funny, we just talked about offensive line a little bit. And so I'll just kind of tell you exactly what I did. Not really hold any punches, but like you remember when COVID happened, obviously we couldn't go in the office and everybody was trying to kind of figure out how to contribute, information to football and learn new things, clinic, whatever it may be. And then at the same time, they were like the protests, the George Floyd, all this stuff going on. And my thing was like, I saw every school kind of try to get involved, and like you would see a coach put out a graphic, like trying to pick a side. And I'm like, man, I'm not doing any of that. Like, I'm just a real dude. And I want to figure out a way to actually contribute something meaningful, right? So I'm like, how can I do that in my own way? So what I kind of did is I just woke up one morning and I put out a tweet and I said, hey, I want to get, as many young black, matter of fact, I said, any young black coach, just go ahead and shoot me your email. And I ended up getting like over 700 emails within my Twitter thread. Like I had to chase it. I was typing in Excel to try to like make a database out of it. And it just got it was just so many, I had to like delete the tweet. I think I was at like 750. And what I did was I emailed all these people and I just said, hey man, we're going to do a Zoom tonight. It was me. You're in Richmond. So Richmond, Winston, October.
Yes, love them.
Yeah, because basically what we were trying to do, how it started, it was me, my friend Marvin Clessidor, he's the safeties coach at Temple. We had Everett Withers, who's the defensive coordinator at
He's
Temple
an animal.
now.
He's an animal.
Yeah, we also had, I'm trying to think, one of my friends, Maurice Sims, he's the head strength coach at University of Colorado. I played college ball with him at Concord University. And then the last guy we had was from Richmond as well, Christian Parker, who I ended up working with at the Denver Broncos. And he was quality control at the Green Bay Packers at the time. So basically, we literally hopped on, and it was about 250, 260 people ended up, joining us that night. And I kind of started the thing off, and I literally, gave a presentation on a coverage without holding any punches, without substituting any names, and really like trying to share genuine information because, a lot of the time when we get on these things, we kind of sugarcoat things. We don't talk about things all the way through in detail. We make people kind of figure out the loose ends. And I just feel like, if there's anything to contribute, it's information. And we just kind of, took turns and did our thing. And we had Winston October as an offensive voice. We had Everett as a head coach kind of voice. And no, it went really well. So I just think, you got to find your own way, to contribute, whether you want to or not. So long story short, the reason I told you that is because when I went back in my office, I called my O-line coach, Sean Devine at Villanova at the time. And I said, hey, man, like I knew that he would do something for me if I asked him. And I said, hey, man, like there's not a lot of black O-line coaches. There's two positions, O-line and quarterback. And I said, I'd love, man, if you could just do a clinic for me. I told him what we did. And I said, hey, man, I could set this whole thing up for you. I could send out emails and Twitter, send out, things on Twitter and things like that to try to get people interested. And he's like, hell yeah, man, I'll do it in a heartbeat. So what he ended up doing was like the next time I saw him, this dude had 6 weeks planned out, all right, of different things to talk about. So we did 6 weeks worth of Zooms, just one a week. And we would have around 70 to 80, minority O-line coaches in there. So like to
Awesome.
me, that's making an impact as
Heck
far
yeah.
as I'm a football guy. Like I'm not all into all that other stuff that's going on. So how can we, move forward football wise? I think that was huge.
Yeah. So like I kind of missed out on all that. Like someone told me, Troy, why are you doing a podcast? Like, dude, people were doing Zooms back during COVID. And I was like, really? I never watched one because I've been coaching 20 years
Yeah.
and that was kind of like a break for me. People are like, Troy, how are you living without football? But dude,
Ooh.
I've gone 20 years nonstop.
Yeah,
So
man.
like, yeah.
I'll tell you this, like, so that's funny you just said that. I looked at COVID in two ways. Like, it is either time off. There's a lot of time to fill, but for me, like, I dove in deep in. Like,
Yeah.
all I did was football. It was great. It was a great time period for me because I really broke down everything that I've done, and I rebuilt it, in a new way. But just being able to your point, get on Zoom and hear other people talk and things like that. And I'm gonna be honest. Before that, it's funny. I had a conversation with James Franklin about it because I noticed about him, he was always trying to collect information from everybody, and like trying to see who the next young coaches are and all these things. I'm like, but you're not really giving out a ton of information. You're always doing general clinics. So I just asked him, I'm like, I haven't really put myself out there. I've always been a collector myself. But during COVID is when I kind of flipped it around and said, like, simplest thought I had was like, if I passed away, like, am I just going to take all this information I have to the grave? Like, it's not benefiting anybody. Let me put it out there because what's somebody going to do with the information anyway? Like, if an offensive coach watches me teach quarters coverage, he still got to know when I'm going to call the damn call. You know what I mean? And we're going to mix up our calls anyway. So, and we're going to make game plan specific, game plans. So, like, what are we really hiding? Is my thing. So, to your point, I didn't even know Zoom existed before COVID. That was my biggest disappointment. I would have invested in
Heck
COVID.
yeah. So like for the people that don't know, Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself and where are you from?
Yeah, I'm actually from Northern Virginia. I was born in Alexandria, Virginia. I lived there till I was about 9 years old. Then I moved to Reston, Virginia. That's where I went to high school. But I lived in Reston for like a year. It's funny. I actually lived, in a shelter. Parents going through some things. My mom moved us into a domestic violence shelter when I was like 10 years old. So,
wow.
We lived there for like a year. Then she got her stuff together. We moved to Falls Church, Virginia. So that was about 30 minutes away. Lived there for about a year. And then I moved back to Reston. So I went to high school in Reston at South Lakes High School. Played football, basketball, ran track there. It's funny. We actually lost in basketball my junior year state championship to Highland Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in, what was that, 2003. And we lost to Phoebus in 2003 as well in football in the state semis. They whooped our ass, man. It was bad.
They had some good teams, man.
They had everybody back then. But
Antoine Ingram, was it Ingram that played for Highland Springs that got this contract with the Lakers?
Yep. They had Macho Harris was a young guy on there. There was also a football player that went to Virginia.
Wyatt Hicks that went to UNC.
Is that
big white kid with blonde hair?
Yeah, so it was a light-skinned black dude, real strong.
Oh, that's Burrell, I think. Last name is Burrell, went to Clemson.
Oh, is that where he went?
I think he did. I don't know if he lasted, but I believe that's where he went.
Okay, because it's funny, my best friend Eddie Royal played at Virginia Tech. And
yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, when I played at Concord University in West Virginia, and I would drive down after my games at Saturday at 1 o'clock. I'd drive down to Virginia Tech to go watch them play at night. And one time I saw that dude in the stands and I said, "Hey man, you look familiar." And I was like, "You play for Highland Springs?" And he like put up his ring. He had his ring on from the game. So I was a little salty about that.
Yeah. So you went to Concord, and for people that don't know, Concord is on the side of a mountain. When I got recruited by Concord, it was Concord College, and me and my brother went there on a visit. They made me run a 40 through the door of the gym. You actually had to run through the door before the guy would stop the watch because it wasn't long enough. And I mean,
God.
I must not have ran fast enough.
Hey,
but
man,
that's did funny. They make you run a 40 through a door of a gym?
Well, it's funny. Some people don't realize in Division II recruiting, you got to go work out at some of these places. And I remember I worked out at like Shepherd. I worked out at Rhyne. You know, I didn't have to work out at Concord, fortunately. And it was one of those things that made you feel good. Like you knew that they were confident in you and you didn't have to jump through these hoops to go there.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my deal. I didn't have to work out there, but I did work out at Shepherd. And there's a funny story behind that. So like I used to have like coaches take me on these visits or somebody's parents, you know, if there was a prospect that I was playing with that was going somewhere, we go together. And I remember I did my workout at Shepherd. Like I ran a 40 in my basketball shoes from my high school. And so you know the team shoes in high school, we had like blue. There were like some big blue shoes at South Lakes, man. And I just remember slipping all over the place. And the coaches there that recruited me are still there. And like Josh Klein, Ernie McCook, and those guys.
Yep. And
Josh keeps bringing up a story every time I see him about a ball that was thrown to me that went through my hands and hit me in the face. So yeah, that was a mess. But they regret not taking me. So it all makes sense now.
Jim Tim here is he went to East Stroudsburg and he's in Rochester, New York. Concord, very scrappy team. So Jim Tim is a part of our YouTube channel, Totem Pole Nation, which is the CFC Clinic is a part of. And Jim Tim is a big fan of Lolo Jones. All right. He may or may not be stalking Lolo for votes. He's in a competition, coach, for Muscle and Fitness magazine to win $20,000. So, Jim Tim, if you have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and ask the question you always want to know. Coach Adams, what is your biggest weakness?
You're saying like as a person or as a coach?
Let's just go as a coach because, I mean, that's what Jim likes that question. And then he wants to know, how are you improving that?
Yeah, you know, I think my biggest weakness as a coach really is being satisfied. Like you never want to get complacent. But I think in my mind, I've never looked at myself as being successful, you know, and I've talked to people about that. Like it conflicts me. And I wish I was better at enjoying success, enjoying victories, enjoying coaching in the NFL. You know, like I never felt like, I just felt like it was another job and you're just always working. And at some point, I think in life, you know, we don't live forever. And you're never going to truly be happy unless you learn how to enjoy wins and things of that nature. One quick story on that. So when my first defensive coordinator job I had, I was 24 years old when I got hired at SUNY Cortland. So he's from Rochester. SUNY Cortland was my first defensive coordinator job when I was 24. And we were really good. We had one of the top defenses in the country. But we played a team that's close to the guy you just mentioned, team called Brockport, had a really good offense. And we won that game, 60-something to 40-something. And I was hot, you know, as a defensive coach. We won, but I wasn't happy. And my head coach put his arm around me and just said, hey, man, like, I've been doing this a long time. You got to learn how to enjoy the victories, man, because they're hard to come by. And that's a quote that I always try to pass down to other people, because that was one of those moments that I realized that it's all about winning, you know, at the end of the day. It's not about points. It's not about statistics. And even just in life in general, man, and just learning how to enjoy every day. Life is hard enough as it is. And I wish I was better at enjoying the moment.
Yeah. I mean, the COVID thing, like I've always been so caught up on, well, what's my record going to be? Well, we got to win 2 more games. So then I'm not under 500. But in COVID, we went 1-5.
Mm-hmm.
That was when we played that short season, and we were in every game.
Mm-hmm.
The referees, it can't be close with us because I'm the most penalized coach of all time on any level, from professional to Pop Warner. No one has received more flags or been ejected more games than me. All right, I'm Woody Hayes Jr. But going 1-5 was the best thing that ever happened to me because I had a losing record at a school that wins 80% of their games and with 3 state championships. And after it was over with, we had a staff meeting on the phone, me, my brother, and 2 young guys. And Shane Reynolds, who you may know, Shane was like, well, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? I was like, dude, we're going to do what we've always done.
Mm-hmm.
Just go back to work and start the off season. And the next year we was in the playoffs. Then the next year, this year, we lost to Highland Springs in the regional championship. So, dude, going 1-5, the best thing that ever happened to me because I was okay. I mean, I said I'm still one of the best coaches around. I wasn't, I was okay. So I think maybe you got to take some real devastating losses, man. And I mean, I don't know your story, but I just know what you've been through. And I mean, heck, man. I mean, you got to look back to connect the dots. And I mean, You've been blessed, to get where you've been and to be, to go through what you've been through, living in a shelter. I mean, does that, what do you think about what I just said?
Yeah, you hit it spot on. I do. So one thing we did at Villanova that was important to us, to your point, it's not about the record. It's about the way that you do things leading up to that record. So Nick Saban talk about the process all the time.
Yes.
And you have to come up with your own process and your own way of doing things. And just because it's not successful the first time doesn't mean that it's not the right way or a good way to do things. Sometimes you got to stick it out, and go through some tough times in order to see that daylight. So you made a great point about COVID, and that was a time that everybody had to look themselves in the mirror. Everybody had to look in the mirror and figure out wow, I'm just happy to step on the field. I'm just happy to be able to be a football coach. Really break it down in its simplest form, because there was a time where we had to coach those guys on Zoom. That wasn't fun. And we're used to being out on the grass. So at the end of the day, a tool that we used when we got back in person, or even when we were Zooming with the players, we'd be like, all right, do y'all appreciate it now? Do you appreciate it now? Some of the things that you took for granted, some of the things you were complaining about, like a shirt size, the equipment guy didn't give you enough gloves, these little things that really aren't important when the guys in the locker room are important. You miss the guys. That you miss being around the guys. That's the main thing. So I know for me, I just appreciated coaching more after COVID and life in general, going through a lot of the things that I've went through in my life. For sure, I definitely appreciate where I'm at in the journey that it took to get here. Because, where I grew up in Section 8. So, a lot of people I grew up with, I got friends that are dead. I got friends that are in jail. I got friends that are just still back home, just living that kind of hometown life, which I'm not used to anymore, and I just cannot do. But I still try to reach back. And at the end of the day, I have friends that are doing really well. So at the end of the day, you can't really take for granted everything that you've been through in your life. It really makes you who you are. And a big philosophy of mine, and when it comes to coaching, if I started day one with a new team, I wouldn't even talk about football. We don't even talk about football. We're going to try to get to know you. I'm going to share my whole story with you, literally from the beginning all the way to the end. And I'm going to open up the floor, all right, for anyone who's comfortable getting up and sharing anything that could kind of open them up to the team. So maybe it's one thing, maybe it's their whole story, whatever you're comfortable with and whenever you're comfortable getting up. I've done this since 2012. And it's been the greatest tool for any team that I've had. So everything that you mentioned kind of is all about what we did at Villanova. We called it the marathon. And it was like basically saying everything that you go through is making you who you are today. That's part of your journey, part of your story. So I think that's powerful.
Yeah, so Jim Tim's got a question, but like I teach world history and we study the Odyssey and Odysseus and the like he's cocky. He's like Ric Flair. He's on islands with women and he's a leader. But like the two things he realizes is that, man is nothing without God and life is about the journey.
Mm-hmm.
He went through all that to get home to his wife. I mean, in the movie, he left the island with Vanessa Williams. All right. My co-teacher, Coach Neal, said he would not have left that island with Vanessa Williams. He would have stayed right there. Jim Tim, if that was Lolo Jones on that island, I know you'd probably stay. All right. Jim Tim, what are some techniques that you would recommend to deal with pressure during the season, Coach?
Well, I guess I would say none because there is no pressure. I don't believe in pressure. I just don't believe in pressure. My thing when it comes to pressure is if you're feeling pressure, you're listening to outside noise. I don't listen to outside noise. I don't really, honestly, you might see me post on social media, but I really don't do a lot of scrolling on Twitter. I don't do a lot of scrolling on Instagram. I don't scroll on Facebook. I just post stuff and leave it. And my thing is I don't want to get influenced. And there's enough. I'm hard enough on myself and looking for ways to get better and things of that nature versus looking at what somebody's writing in the paper and things like that. I think that puts more pressure on you. Like the season we just had, the Denver Broncos. I mean, we played really good defense. But we didn't play great on offense. And from when you get to that level, everything is scrutinized. Everything. So like it'll literally drive you crazy. It would have drove me crazy if I had time to watch TV. To see what those the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, are saying about the Denver Broncos when I know what we're doing behind closed doors. And it really doesn't matter what he says. It matters what we do. So again, I put enough pressure on myself. But if you're prepared, you're doing things right, you have a process, you stick with that process and you just re-up every week and continue to go through it. I've been coaching long enough to where I'm very comfortable and confident in the way that, I do things, whether it comes to coaching DBs or being a defensive coordinator. I know how to fix issues in our defense. I'm always trying to stay ahead. I'm trying to stay ahead of the curve. I'm doing every program known to man to try to learn about the game, trying to give back to the game. What else can I do at the end of the day? So I don't feel like there's pressure, man. I have high expectations for myself, and I go ahead and try to put my best foot forward. I'm confident. I don't second guess myself. So there's no pressure to me on my side.
Yeah. But I mean, is the pressure from the results? Is the pressure from, what is the result going to be? What is the scoreboard going to be? Because like you said, Nick Saban, it's the process. Bill Walsh, don't worry about the scoreboard. Bud Foster, win. What's important now?
That's the so that's what we used at Villanova is win. What's important now. So how I told our players to use it, I'm like, hey, if we're at practice and a guy is carrying on with the offense after the play, just yell out win. And so it's a trigger word for us. Every time somebody said win, we got refocused and we got back to understanding our philosophy that it was all about us. It ain't about them. In general, if they skip the class, win. What's important? All right, coach, I got you. I'll get to class. So that was a huge refocus mechanism for us. So I definitely enjoy that question for sure.
What do you do off the field that brings you joy? This is Coach Bald. Coach, if you're ever in St. Petersburg, this guy lives in a house with $1 million backyard. I mean, it looks like Tom Brady's backyard. Okay. And St. Pete Rejuvenate, who's one of the Totem Pole sponsors his wife owns. And he's got Sarah Blake Cheek, that's got 400,000 followers on TikTok and certain other websites that you can pay for her services. What do you do off the field that brings you joy, similar to the feeling of winning a football game?
It's funny because you're really asking deep questions, and for me, it kind of goes along with what I told you earlier, as far as like I still have to get better at enjoying things outside of football. I'm really like a football dude. I do, even in the off season, I'll be doing football. I could do football till 2 a.m. I'll be working on my stuff. So
could you go 5 hours with Bob Wiley on a Saturday?
I can go 24 hours straight.
You should be co-host.
I literally could talk ball all day, and it's like, hey man, close the computer and get outside and enjoy yourself. So one of the things I enjoy doing, really, it's probably my favorite thing, is just finding new places to eat. Like I just went to a new place yesterday in Washington D.C. Called Barcelona. It's a wine bar, and I just enjoy kind of getting around, trying new food. Visiting and really new food and new places, so that's the beautiful thing about being a football coach, is whether your job is in different locations, whether you're on the road recruiting, you always got to find the best places to eat, and that's a joy of mine, something that does make me happy. Another thing, man, is just really getting a chance to spend time with some of my core friends, some of my best friends, because we don't get to really get together all the time. Like I mentioned, Eddie Royal, he was playing most of my career, so I didn't get to see him ever during the season. Have a friend that, works in banking. He was working for Goldman Sachs, so he's all over the country. I didn't get to see him, so when we get together, those are some of my favorite times that I have for sure. But second to that would definitely be eating for me.
Jim Tim says, if you like good places to eat, come up to Rochester, New York for the Garbage Plate.
That Garbage Plate is exactly what it sounds like. Straight garbage.
Have you been to it?
Huh?
Have you been to Garbage Plate?
Yeah. So I'm trying to.
Wow.
Think.
So you give Garbage Plate a thumbs down.
It's terrible. It's so bad.
Jim Tim.
The problem with it is they just put a bunch of stuff on it, but it tears your stomach up, and you're gonna be on the toilet. You're gonna be on the toilet for about 24 hours after that one. I just talked to somebody about a garbage plate. What is
the Garbage Plate, Coach? Because I'm not cultured. I eat peanut butter out of a jar. I mean it.
He could explain it to you better than me. I only had it once, and this was probably 2010, 2009. So I don't remember exactly what the hell was on
garbage.
It. It's just garbage. Just a bunch of different food on it. I can't even remember what was on that thing, man, to be honest.
But you give it a thumbs down. So if you're terrible. In Rochester, New York, where are you going?
So remember the quote? Basically, they say you always remember how somebody makes you feel. Mm-hmm. I remember how that garbage plate made me feel.
Wow.
Terrible. So that's all I remember about it.
You're not going back.
Yeah, never.
Man.
And wouldn't recommend you going either.
Wow. Jim Tim's coming back here. All different kinds of mac and cheese, barbecue sauce, so on, French fries. So Jim Tim, next time you go to Garbage Plate, we're going to do a show. You could be like the Dave Portnoy of Totem Pole. You can give us a Garbage Plate review.
Oh, all right. God. Yes. That's terrible.
Oh, man, Coach. I don't even know where Rochester, New York is. He said something about Rhode Island. I thought Rhode Island was next to Delaware. I thought that I would just drive up there from Richmond.
That's funny.
It is. It exactly. Is funny. I'm funny. I don't know where anything is. I mean, I don't go anywhere.
That's how you guys in Richmond are.
I'm from Route 10. I'm from Iron Bridge Road. Short pump is another country to me.
That's why I hate people calling the DMV DC, Maryland, and Virginia. DC, Maryland, and Virginia is DC and the surrounding counties.
Yeah.
Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Northern Virginia, maybe up to Stafford is the cutoff.
We don't go north of Kings Dominion.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like when Richmond's a whole different kind of place. Virginia Beach is a whole different kind of place than the DMV to me. Baltimore, whole different type of place. So when people call it the DMV now, it's just kind of weirds me out.
So, I mean, if someone refers to it as the DMV and they're talking about Richmond, that person really doesn't know what they're talking about. But there is love from VA, from Virginia, whether you're Eddie Royal, whether you're from Nova, whether you're from, the 757 or Richmond, like VA, we roll together. Okay. So Tim, you don't know where the thing is and you're a history teacher. Okay. Seriously, Troy, what you need to come to my class, Tim, and see exactly what happens. You can just up there where you live is where they filmed The Shining and The One That Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Seriously.
All right, that's me. I'm Jack Nicholson in both of those movies, Tim. All right, so yeah, I mean, Coach, this is what we deal with. We have a great following and we love them, but Tim always wants to know, how does he move up in the profession? How have you moved up in the profession? He's interviewed for some different jobs. He's even said he will relocate and work for free. I forgot who it was, but they told you don't do that. Don't work for free because, I mean, that's stupid.
That's a pretty loaded question right there. Because before you followed up about the for free part, I was about to say that's a good thing. So I'll kind of tell you both sides.
I can't remember who it was. Paul Brown, I think. Paul Brown said, "Don't let anybody work for free." I guess because you can't fire them.
Yeah, I'll talk about the free part first.
Paul Brown, I thought of it, Coach. Paul Brown didn't want anybody working for free because when people work for free, they expect you to let them sleep on their couch or let them eat your food or that's what Paul Brown said, but Paul Brown was a billionaire. So that's what Paul Brown thought.
Yeah, I would say this. In our profession, it's just kind of different than any other profession. So when it does come to football, I would say being a volunteer would be the last resort, total last resort. And it really depends on your age. If you're 22 years old, you can afford to volunteer somewhere. But if you're 30, 35 years old, volunteering is a little bit different. So I think at the end of the day, you got to be cognizant of being able to get your foot in the door. If you're 22 years old and you can volunteer at a major, FBS program, why wouldn't you? Because that's the only way you're going to get around some of those coaches. And really, once you're on a staff, people don't care if you're a volunteer or not. They care if you do a good job or not. So sometimes people just need an opportunity and a place to work out of and to be able to do good work for people. And later on, that may lead to something. It may not pop right now, but it may lead to something 10 years down the road. And or it may lead to something that next year, depending on if something opens up. So again, I believe it depends on where you're at in your life when it comes to volunteering. But just in general, as far as moving up in the profession, I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all. I think everybody has their own path, and everybody needs to enjoy their own path and run their own race. I really believe that because the way I went about moving up is not the same way other people went about moving up. I wanted to coach right away. I never wanted to be a GA. I never wanted to be a GA. So I was willing to coach Division III ball to start out my career and make $6,000. You got me? But I had 20 guys in my room when I was 22 years old. All right. And I had a coach that empowered me to have to figure things out. So I've always been ahead of people who were GAs and things like that because they've never coached. Right. And at the end of the day, I got to go out on the road recruiting. So one thing people use against you when you don't go on the road recruiting is, oh, you've only been at GA. You haven't been on the road recruiting, so you don't really know what that's like. Nobody could ever hold that against me because I've been on the road recruiting since I was 22 years old, right? But the hard thing about starting at a Division III, if your goal is to coach in the NFL like mine was, you got to systematically kind of move up, right? And that's not always easy. Coaching Division III isn't necessarily always going to get you connected to FBS coach. So sometimes it's hard to move up and you can get stuck at these Division III schools, these Division II schools, just because of your network. So for me, I had a huge network in a sense before I started coaching because I went back to the people that recruited me and really worked out of that from high school. And that helped me at least have connections to people that were in the NFL or that were coaching big time ball, even though I was coaching Division III ball. But the big time to me is where you're at. That's the truth. I treated Cortland, and Cortland's still my favorite job, Division III. Man, we had exos back then, so I was able to create drill tapes and just really I was collecting drill tapes from people, really studying, learning the game. I was coaching with people that had the same mentality as me. I'm trying to think. The guy who taught me how to use Exos at Cortland and taught me how to use Visio at Cortland, he's been coaching in the NFL now since he was 24 years old, so probably about 8 to 9 years now. He was our video guy at Cortland. The guy who got me into coaching, his name's Jason Repovich. He's the outside backers coach of the Green Bay Packers. He was my defensive coordinator at Cortland. He coached me in college. I'm trying to think. Stephen Thomas, assistant special teams with the New York Giants right now. He was the DB coach at Cortland before me. We had a network at Cortland of guys who coached in the NFL. Doug Marone's first job was at Cortland. So, if you could find a place with a network, you could really work that network to really help you move up. And as I moved through jobs in the profession, every job I had was through a prior connection. So when I moved from Cortland to go to Glenville State in 2010, I had played in the Weeviat Conference back in the day. So those guys already knew me. And then I got hired back at Cortland as a defensive coordinator. Then I got hired at Columbia as the wide receivers coach. I got that job through a program I did with the NCAA. It's called the NCAA Future Coaches Academy. I met Gordy Sammies, who was the offensive line coach at William & Mary, played at UVA, he's at UConn now. But me and him became real tight back in 2010 because we did a program together. 2014, he's like, hey, man, would you be interested in coming to Columbia to work for us? So that's how I broke into coaching Division I. And then so I worked there for a year. I'm working for Pete Mangarian. He's an offensive line guy. He's a 20-year NFL coach. Even when I got there, I wrote Jeff Hafley, because I read his background and I saw he was at a D3. It's like you have to really work these things. John DiFilippo used to coach. He used to coach at Columbia. So I really researched people that were at the places I was at. I'd write them handwritten letters. When I went to Villanova, I coached running backs there for 2 years. So Andy Talley, is who I went to work for, the head coach there. So my connection to Villanova was through my coach at Cortland. Used to be the defensive coordinator at Villanova from 1984 to 1996 under Coach Talley. So I was connected there. How did I get to Temple University? I was at Temple for a month after Villanova. Stan Drayton used to coach running backs at Villanova. How did I get to the NFL, to the Denver Broncos? I interned with the San Francisco 49ers in 2014. The defensive coordinator I worked for at the Broncos was defensive quality control at the 49ers. My agent right now, Richmond Flowers, was offensive quality control, all right, with the 49ers. And now he's the agent for Matt LaFleur, Robert Saleh.
And he's my agent too. You just got a new customer.
Brandon Staley, Mike McDaniel, he got all the young coaches. So at the end of the day, it's all about, to me, who you're connected with. But like, you can also, if you're a GA, you already kind of got a foot in to people who can move you around this profession. So I'm not saying that my way is the right way. I'm just saying that this is my path. And there's other people that have been GAs other places that have been able to move up quicker than me. So there's no one size fits all in this profession.
Yeah. So Jim says, then what happens? And he's got about 3 different things he's sent here now. So I got to read all these. Then what happens if you do a good job and you get things done and they still don't give you a chance? Then what, even with all the connections in the world, you go get the connections, you do the hard work, you do the grind, and they still don't get that opportunity. He says, I get in top 3 selections, and I understand their people either have inside connection or a little bit more experience. And Jim, I just had the Cincinnati St. X high school coach on, and he talks about it. Jim, what is your brand? Jim Tim. If I Google James Tim, coach, Rochester, New York, what comes up? Google is very powerful. And I had a player that played at Mississippi State, and I think he's only killed 3 people now. He's in prison for the rest of his life. But he told kids on our team, you can Google me. And that's a great term.
Good or bad.
Remember that. You can Google me. So Jim Tim says this: do everything I can to make connections, work hard, and care about every program. So,
yeah, I got a good answer. What advice
do you have for Jim? Jim feels like he's beating his head against the wall.
Yeah, I have a good answer for that one. So my thing about coaching and getting into college coaching, you have to be okay with falling flat on your face, or don't get into it. That's what I tell every coach when he starts coaching. I say, you can't be caught up in the level that you're coaching at, because coaching is coaching, whether it's high school, little league, NFL, it's all the same. But
same.
Yeah, you can't base your worth on where you're at. That's why I said the big times where you're at. At the end of the day, like, I was at a D3. I was at Cortland. I worked at Cortland for 4 years. There's no guarantee I'd coach for the Denver Broncos, but I was aspiring to. So a story. There's a poster at my mom's house to this day. Every time I go back, I see it. But this is a big point. I tried to get an internship in the NFL since 2009, since the day I got in there. And I remember asking Eddie Royal, I said, hey, can you ask your DB coach, Ed Donato at the time, I said, hey, can you have him send me some film? Can you ask him some questions? Like, what do I have to do to try to make it to the NFL? And Ed Donatel's like, get your goddamn resume up. And that was it. I had a relationship with Ed Donatel, but at the end of the day, my point is I wrote handwritten letters, all right, to at least 3 people on each team every single year for 6 years. And all I got back was rejection letters. No, you're not getting an internship.
And that was probably like an award. Even if you got a letter, that was like, hey, man, at least I got something.
Exactly. That was what I was about to say. So some people wrote me back handwritten letters. Bill Belichick signed one of the things.
Which he writes his name out.
Writes his name out. So I'm like,
P-I-L-L.
Yeah, so I'm like, all right, maybe I'm getting closer. It was motivating to me. I said, at least they're writing me back. But again, there's no guarantee that it's going to happen. But boom, 6 years later, I get my first opportunity with the Chicago Bears in 2013. And I run through that window and take advantage of that opportunity. So at the end of the day, like, you have to be willing. All right, one other story. So there was a coach when I was at Cortland, and I was all the way in. I had my moment where I said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I was at Don Bosco in New Jersey, coaching D3, man. Some of these high school coaches, they'll stick 10 guys in a room with you because you're a D3 coach, right? So I'm like vibing with these 10 guys, and I'm like, we're having a great time. And I'm like, wow, man, this is awesome. I really enjoy pitching this recruiting thing to these guys because it was just natural for me. I never pitched anything. I just be myself. But I called my coach at Cortland as soon as I walked out the door, and I said, "Hey, coach, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life." So from that moment on, my mentality changed. It didn't matter that I was making $6,000. It didn't matter that I was at a Division III school. All that mattered is I was going to do the best I could at the job that I had. That's it. That's it. And if people liked it, they liked it. If they didn't, they didn't. But I know that I did the best that I could there. And if you can't get to that point, then this profession is going to be tough on you because you can't move around all the time when you want to. So some things that I did, I made drill tapes and I put them on YouTube. I taped some of the meetings I had and I put them on YouTube. I exposed myself. You know what I mean? I posted on Facebook or, all these things, and people started watching these things. So when I would go to the coaching convention, I'd have people walk up to me like, "Hey man, you're Ola Adams." And I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm a small D3 young coach, man. You watch what I put on YouTube. I even had a quote book I made back then as well when I was probably like 23. I started a quote book because like every meeting I would start by writing a quote on the board, and I would ask my position group, I'd say, "Hey, what do you think about this quote?" Because somebody gave me a quote. It said, "A man's mind, once stretched with a new idea, never regains its original dimensions." That just blew my head open. And I wrote that quote out for the players. And because my mentality is to introduce new ideas to them. And every day I'd write a different quote, and I just started a Word document off of that. Before you know it, it became a huge document. Right now, it's probably 150 pages. I haven't worked on it in probably 5-6 years, but I think it's about 150 pages of just quotes, and it's separated alphabetically. And basically, I started researching coaches' quotes and just any type of leader, whether it's Martin Luther King, you mentioned Odysseus, whoever, anybody in the history before I was born. I would try to just pull a few quotes and put it in this book, and it became this monster. And what I did is I printed 50 copies when I was at Cortland. And what I did is I kept a list of people who helped me in this profession so far and people who I thought could help me later. And I started sending this book out for free. It cost thousands of dollars. I sent it out for free. Like Mike London has a book. I handed it to him after UVA camp, right on the field. James Franklin has a book because of Charles Bankins. Charles Bankins recruited me when I was in high school and he was at Hampton. So I sent him a book. I think he was at Vanderbilt when I sent him this book. And he called me back and he said, "Hey, man, you got to send 2 more books down. Coach Franklin wants one." I'm like, "What?" So my thing is like, are you thinking outside the box at ways to get through the people? Again, giving things out for free and not expecting anything in return. So you can't say, "Hey, I did a good job at a place. They're still not hiring me." You should think like that going in. You know what I mean?
Tim, you should be saying, "Dude, I'm the man, and those other guys are scrubs. I don't care where you coach." Dude, Coach McNally, after my first podcast, he called me back and said, "Who are you?" I said, "Coach, I'm a high school coach in Richmond, Virginia. Is your team any good?" I was like, "We lost to Highland Springs, the regional championship." He said, "You're above average." I was like, "Above average?" Like, wow. That's like Michael Jordan telling you you're good at basketball. But Jim Tim, Coach, Paul Brown, Bill Belichick, Steve Jobs, Sean Puffy Combs. Okay. Paul Brown was fired by the Browns. The name was named after Paul Brown. Okay. Bill Belichick fired by the Browns. Let's see. Steve Jobs fired by Apple. Yeah, that was pretty smart. They fired him for a Coca-Cola guy. Sean Puffy Combs fired by Uptown. So, like,
it's all part of the journey. Yeah. Ultimately, it's all part of
Jim started watching when we only had 10,000 followers. He was watching on LinkedIn, Coach. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
And he was asking questions. Now he's asking you questions. He's been on podcasts with all kinds of head coaches, NFL guys. I mean, he's came a long way. A lot of people. Now you know who Jim Tim is, don't you? And when I introduce myself, I always say my first and last name because I want people to know who I am, you know?
No doubt. No doubt. And
talk about that.
Writing handwritten letters, man, that's an unspoken thing because people send emails, text, those could be copied and sent out. There's just something special to me and how I went about my career. I wrote a lot of people. And again, if I wrote 100 people in the NFL, let's say it wasn't about an internship, I was probably expecting maybe 5 back out of that 100. So my point is, like, everybody's not here to help you. Sometimes you just have to get the information off of people and move on. But everybody's not here to help you. But there are a few people that are willing to help you, and you need to hang on to those people. But again, man, when you go work somewhere, I never want to be in a position where they have to carry me and I feel like they owe me something. Nobody owes me anything. I'm going to move up in this profession, whether they help me or not. That's my mentality. And I think you have to really hold on to that mentality and just keep tapping the rock. You know, that's what we said at Villanova. You know, it's like, it's a story of the stonecutter. You know, he's just banging at the hammer, you know, thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of times, and that rock just won't break. But man, it's just that one time, boom, the whole thing shatters, right? And it's about the attempts that you took at it. It's about those constant attempts that you took to get that rock to break. So you never know. Your blessing might be right around the corner, right? So don't give up is my thing. Just keep going.
I mean, in Jim Tim, like, there was another guy who had a podcast and he wanted to do podcasts. He wanted to talk to coaches. He said, well, Troy, how do you get all these guys? Mm-hmm. I mean, you might have just met me, Jim Tim, but dude, I've been doing this for over 20 years. So like, yeah, like, and overnight successes are not made overnight. Yeah. And like, if you just started doing this, people don't know who you are. Mm-hmm. But like the one thing they said, Coach, I studied these podcasts. The way to get the guy on the top is to get the guy in the middle that he knows. Mm-hmm. And then once you get him, you get the next guy. Because once we got Jim McNally, then it blew up. Yeah. Then it's like we got Scott Peters. We got a guy who's calling me going, Troy, I can't talk about the Browns. Yeah. I mean, me and Coach McNally was going to have him go over game tape. Like, no, he's not doing that, dude. Yeah. Like, so, I mean, networking, you know, beyond sports. I saw that you started that, Coach. What does that mean to you beyond sports? Why did you start that nonprofit?
Yeah, so funny story. It's all about how I grew up. Everything that I do, whether it's with the kids with football and just in life, is just based on my experience in life. And again, you know, I've been through a lot, but one thing I always had was sports, whether it's football, basketball, track. And I've learned a lot of life lessons through football or through sport. And you're always taught, you know, when you're young, hey, use football to get a degree, you know, use football to get an education, a free one at that, or whatever it may be. And that's my thing with life beyond sports. You know, we all reach a point where we all think we're going pro, you know, and real life hits you real fast. And one thing for me is just making sure we continue to educate, you know, the players as they're kind of coming up, you know, using sports to get their education, educate them on other things outside of sports that they can do as careers and things of that nature. But also, like, a big thing for me is like really applying it at the school where I'm working. So like life beyond sports, like for me, it's things that I used to do when I was in high school. My high school basketball coach had us read to elementary school kids. Mm-hmm. my football coach, we had a shoe drive. I'm Nigerian. I'm always sending clothes back to my family in Nigeria. Early in my career coaching, I went and spoke at a youth detention center. I think I did like 30 groups to like 5 groups, so like 150, of the inmates there. I got a chance to speak to and share my story. So my thing is like giving back in your own way, in ways that don't really cost a dollar. So I kicked this thing off by basically I did a basketball tournament at my neighborhood that I grew up in Reston, and basically like we let everybody come play for free. We had face painting for the kids, like ice cream and games and chalk, all type of stuff, man. Food. It was a really cool thing to kind of pull my community together and just really talk to them about what we're trying to do and it's basically like a call for action as well. Like, hey, get out here and give back in your own way. Doesn't have to be financially. You could spend time, mentor somebody, donate some clothes somewhere. It's just all about giving back in your own way, in a way that doesn't cost money. But yeah, man, life beyond sports, man, because a lot of guys are just focused on the portal and getting to the next school. And hey, you better get that degree, all right, and you better have a plan for what you want to do after college, because even if you do make it to the league, it ain't gonna last very long. So
not for long.
Yeah, so I think it's important, man, to really think about life beyond sports. But as a coach, it's really important to use sports to teach life lessons.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Christian Parker here in a second. But the reason, Jim, like it took me 20 years to come up with this, but one, we want to change lives. We're changing lives. We're changing lives with this podcast. We're changing lives in our team, in our school, in our community. 2, we're helping get people to the next level. All right, we're helping our players get to the next level, whether that's college or the military or trade school or whatever. 3, we're building champions for life. And that's the 3 things I'm going to hang my hat on. And it doesn't matter where I coach. I could be at Virginia Union. I could be at Amelia. I could be at LC Bird. I could be at Alabama. And those same 3 things are going to go with me. So Christian Parker, let's talk about him. I was coaching football at Virginia Union University, and we were playing Virginia State. And there's this little guy. He's a little guy. I mean, I think he played at William and Mary, but he's a 7'5" guy, and he's smart, and he can talk.
Yeah,
he sounds smart. He can talk. Okay. Well, I showed my class last year. I said, see this guy right here? This guy that's coaching in the NFL? I said, this guy right here was coaching at Virginia State when I was at Virginia Union. So Jim Tim,
that's a good point.
Look at Christian Parker.
That's a great point.
Coach, you could talk about Christian now, Coach.
Yeah, I've known Christian for a while. I actually, it's funny because he's from Richmond, but his family moved down to Northern Virginia. So I recruited his brothers, so it's a small world. But no, man, you're right. Christian Parker, pretty sharp dude. And I feel really fortunate to had the chance to work with him last year. I mean, I talk to that dude every day. I don't think I talk to anybody more than I've talked to him at this point. But no, he's a special guy. He's younger than me. I think he's 31 years old right now. And it's going to be his 3rd season in the league as a DB coach. So, again, there's no particular path for anybody. Everybody's path is different. But one thing, I just noticed about him is just how hard he works, man. I've never in my career seen anybody get up as early in the morning as consistently as him and leave as late as him every single day. Because I'm a work guy. Like, I'm a football guy. I work when I go home. But this dude, he's on another level when it comes to his work ethic. Like you said, it's funny you said that he seems smart because I just talked trash to him about 2 days ago, because he'll put on these glasses during our meetings, And I'm like, man, you just do that shit to try to sound a little bit smarter.
I mean, he went to William and Mary.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even spell William and Mary.
Yeah,
All
but
right?
no.
I would be arrested if I went on their campus.
He went to Richmond. He went to Richmond.
Oh, he went to Richmond?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Richmond, heck.
Yeah. Even
our valedictorian in Meadowbrook couldn't get into Richmond.
Yeah, so
one thing about valedictorian.
One thing about CP is he actually, it's funny. So you know how in college you call like the tech people to help you with your computer and things like that? He worked in that office when he was at Richmond. Think about that. Like, I'm like, what? You worked where? You worked in the tech support office? So I'm like, wow, all right, yeah, you really are a smart dude. So he thinks on a different level. But no, man, he's real detailed, oriented, really good, on the computer stuff like PowerPoint, Visio. Like he can really create some next level documents. One of the best that I've seen do it. He commands respect, even though he's young. That's one of the hardest things to do is as a 31-year-old coach players that are older than you, and or work with somebody like me that's older than him or just a head coach in the NFL. So it takes a real amount of self-confidence to be able to do that. And I just, again, man, I think the world, of CP. Me and him are kind of bonded by the hip, man, through our experience this past year. But just really, really good teacher, really good communicator. He does a really good job with the players, just one-on-one meetings as far as, just making sure they're on the same page. When we were in like full staff meetings with like our GM and things of that nature, one thing, man, that really shocked me about CP is how much knowledge he has about the NFL, because the NFL and college, man, it's two different games. And just there's a lot to learn in the NFL as far as the way things are done, just in general. And he really helped me settle in faster in the league, just really giving me tidbits all the time on how things are done in free agency, how things are done when we, in the draft, how things are done when we bring the rookies in, what phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, what all these different phases in the NFL mean. NFL, mini camp, training camp, what's the tempo that we're going to go at? What are we trying to accomplish in all these different things? He's the one that really taught me all that stuff. And I'll be forever indebted in him because again, I've been coaching in college my whole career, and to have somebody like him kind of break me in and just show me the game, I really appreciated that.
You talked about quotes, and I just learned this quote from Martin Luther King recently, is that not everyone can be famous, but everyone can be great, because greatness is determined by service, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody can be famous. All right. But everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. Think of some of the greatest people of all time are. I don't know. Let's just start maybe Mother Teresa. I mean, all she did was work with people with leprosy her entire life. She won the Presidential Medal of Honor and gave the money to the poor. I mean, talk about that, Coach. I mean, service.
Yeah. The reality, ultimately, like, when you get into coaching, that's what it's all about. I'm coaching because of the coaches that coached me growing up. That's the reason I'm coaching. I had so my father left, I think, when I was 11 years old. So all my coaches are the ones basically that raised me. And my basketball coach when I was 10 years old, he the one that taught me how to shake people's hand. He the one that taught me how to open the door for people. He the one that taught me how to say please and thank you. So, then I had a coach in high school, Coach Bird at South Lakes. He bought me, a winter coat. These are the guys that are teaching you life lessons and things of that nature. So, like, I feel real fortunate just that I've grown up with really good coaches and guys that still come to my games to this day. And when I got done playing, so I worked out for the Commanders, but I didn't get picked up. So I went back to my college, Concord, and I was a student coach for a semester. That's how I got started. But I wasn't sure I wanted to get into coaching. But I went back home, Northern Virginia, did 3 interviews, and I'm like, forget this, man. This ain't what I want to do. And I want to coach. And it hit me. I had an epiphany in my second meeting, like, I want to coach. Like, that's what I want to do. And I pursued it, because I really thought at that moment, like, I'm meant to be a coach. These guys that coached me growing up, really helped me in my life. I want to help people like that were in the position that I'm in. So it's all about, just dipping back in the bucket, reaching back and teaching what's been taught to you, and good things come out of that. The more service you provide for others, the more blessings, that are going to be dropped on you. That's how I look at it. And that was kind of what I talked to you about earlier during COVID, as far as getting on these Zooms and giving out information. I'm like, if I give out enough and help enough people, it's going to come back on me tenfold. That's how I look at it. And that's why we did our clinic that I told you with me and Christian Parker and Marvin Klessler once in October and Everett Withers. I did that clinic to me as a service to young minority coaches. We genuinely wanted to help. I didn't want nothing out of that, but like, it really helped a lot of people. So at the end of the day, I think that's why you should get into coaching, is to be of service to other people. That's why I talked to Jim about, it's not about becoming a college coach or what level you're coaching at. It's about the impact that you're making with the guys that you have. And if you're making an impact with the guys that you have, then you're winning. You're winning. Your players will let you know if you're winning. They'll tell you they love you. That's a win. That's the biggest win that you can get as a coach.
Yeah, and how do you show someone you love them? Time and attention, Tim. I have a guy who I talked to. He's a 21-year-old coach at a school in Minnesota. I'm sorry. They're both near Canada. All right. Minnesota. He sounds like a Canadian. All right. I don't even know how Canadians sound, but it sounds like Rick Moranis and Strange Brew. All right. He told me, he said, I want to change this program around. I said, well, when do y'all work out? Well, we don't. Well, how often are you around your players? I'm never around them. Well, how are you going to change anything if you're the 9th grade coach? Like, dude, you have to be around the players. You have to make an impact. So, like,
yep. Coach Talley Coach Talley is a great coach at Villanova. Coach Talley was at Villanova for 32 years, 1984 to 2016. So he was there before I was born. And his number one quote is, what is this? People don't know. People don't want to know what you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
So he was always about building that personal relationship first, and then doing the football. So that's what I told you. My philosophy when I teach defense, like, I'm telling you, man, at Villanova, 2021, we finished the regular season number 1 in the country on defense. All right. And we didn't even have a goal board. Like every week you play a game and you go over your goal board. We didn't have a goal board. The goal board was to win.
Amen. I hate that when someone tells me, well, Troy, why don't we have a goal board? Because basically, well, we got all our goals, but we didn't win. Like,
yeah. No, the goal is to win.
Win by 1 point. That's David Bedwell.
But even greater. David Bedwell. I love that guy.
Yeah.
But even beyond that, it's about, at the end of the day, it's about the relationship with your players. At the end of the day, I don't care about teaching scheme, man, and all that type of stuff. Like, I really want to connect. Like, I can't tell you how important that is to me. Like, it's very important to me. And I'm not joking when I say the first meeting that we do, I share my story. And I open up the floor for other people to share theirs. Everybody's not comfortable day one, but I always talk to at least one player before that meeting. I say, hey, man, I need you to follow me up here. And then it starts a trend of us all opening ourselves up to each other, right? Now we really know where each other have came from and gone through. So now I really want to play hard for that guy. I really want to coach, I really want to coach hard for that player because I know what he's went through in his life. Or as a coach, from a player's perspective, they're going to say, hey, I want to play for Coach Adams because I know what he's been through. And I know that I've went through similar stuff at him. That kind of connected us together. That to me, that's what it's all about. And then you throw the football on top of that.
Yeah, Coach Cheetah, Coach Jones, I've only met him 3 times, but maybe the second time I met him, he sat in my class and I was teaching him about Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash was a friend to the downtrodden. He was the man in black. All right. And he took a picture with me and he tweeted out that I had elite charisma and energy. And dude, the guy didn't give me $100. He didn't give me a job. He just said that I was elite, had elite energy and charisma. And dude, I'm a 44-year-old man. And that made me feel amazing that someone told me I was elite. So, I mean,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
Positive coaching.
You can, yeah. Like, you don't ever know, what you say to someone, how that can give them a shot in the arm. Like, Coach Whittingham told me, Troy, you're an influencer. And I was like, what? Because, Coach, I post something on Facebook. I don't even like Facebook. Only reason I went to Facebook is because of Virginia Union, because I used to go find players that's been kicked out of school or dropped out of school or, robbed a bank, whatever. But he said every time I'd post something on Facebook, someone would go, Troy, why'd you say that? Well, Troy, why are you doing this? Why? I was like, people actually read what I post? Like, seriously? Like, half the time I'm just messing around.
Yeah.
But when he told me I was an influencer, I was like, okay, yeah, let's go. So you watched the Chris Beatty. Chris Beatty talked about when he went to Northern Illinois, there was a defensive GA who nobody else would watch film with. And he watched film with the guy. And that guy turns out to be Brandon Staley.
Yeah.
Who I met when he was defensive coordinator, and y'all have the same agents. So, I mean, man, talk about the Chris Beatty. He's from the same place as you. He's up there from Northern Virginia.
Yeah.
So talk about Coach Beatty and, your relationship with him and what you got out of that. 2 hours that we were talking.
Yeah. One thing, matter of fact, if you could, after I answer this, just remind me to follow up with that last part that we had. But
what part?
So basically, all I was going to say.
Yeah, go ahead and say it.
All right, I'll add in as far as positive coaching. So to your point, like it's like you never know how important what you say to somebody else is. Just one positive compliment, man, could really go a long way for people. You never know what somebody's going through. And to your point, so I read a study, and Bronco Mendenhall actually was huge on it when he was at UVA and even before that. But it's this theory that you're in high school, so you teach, and there's a theory as far as the way that you approach your teaching with your student. So if a student comes from a poor background versus a rich background, a teacher's going to come in that room, right? And they're going to treat the rich kid like he's smart, and he's going to treat the poor kid like they're dumb. And what they did is, in the study, they just scrambled the whole thing and lied to the teachers. So they didn't really know who was rich or poor, right? So they then told the teacher, hey, this poor kid is rich. So the teacher treated that kid like $1 million, and that kid ended up scoring the highest on all the testing, even though that's really the poor kid. So my point that I tried to get to my coaches at Villanova, once I learned this theory, I said, hey, man, don't have low expectations for anybody in our room. Treat everybody the same. Have high expectations. And let's try to get everybody to reach those expectations. Because when you step in the room with those low expectations, then they're basically going to play to those low expectations. So I just think the way that we approach people in coaching is important, to be positive and to encourage. And at the end of the day, approaching everybody with that same enthusiasm, that everybody could be great, to your point. But just kind of getting back, to Chris Beatty. So Chris Beatty, if I'm not mistaken, Chris Beatty might have went to Chantilly, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, probably about 10, 15 minutes from where I grew up. But I didn't meet Chris Beatty probably till like 4 or 5 years ago, because my agent was Dennis Cordell with Coaches Inc. Me and Beatty had the same agent for a while. And it's funny, I knew Chris Beatty from when he was coaching high school ball at Lansdowne, right? Because my best friend Eddie Royal beat him up in the state championship. And so I always knew of him, but I didn't know him personally. And once I met him, I just always thought he was just a great dude, man. That's the number one thing I always take from him is I just think he's a really good person. I played against him twice this season, and pre-game we'd spend 45 minutes to an hour just sitting on the bench and talking about life and about our aspirations, kind of what's next in our future and things of that nature. But he's really been a good friend, man, over these years. And, one of those older guys, man, that I know I could always reach out to if I need to for advice, and things of that nature. But he's just really down to earth as well. And I just have a guy, one of those guys I have a ton of respect for. One of the things I think that I could bring back from that podcast, if I'm not mistaken, I think you asked him the difference between coaching in college and coaching in NFL.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big difference. Or I guess just I'll go through the whole thing about NFL versus college. Because people ask me, would you rather coach in the NFL or would you rather coach in college? And that's it's a tough question for me because I love being a defensive coordinator and I know I could go be an FBS defensive coordinator today. But at the end of the day, I can't go be a defensive coordinator in the NFL today. I have to work my way up to that. And then the NFL is the pinnacle of football. So that's essentially what everybody's kind of aspiring to do. But for me, when it comes to the difference between college and pros, it to me first starts with the time difference, the time commitment. Coaching in the pros is just a full-time job for football. You don't have to recruit. Think about all how much time recruiting takes. You're on the road recruiting 3 months out of the year, so you're away from your family 3 months out of the year. All right. So that's basically, let's say, December, and then you got middle April, and you got May. You're on the road. And then in the summertime, what are you doing in June? You're doing camps the whole summer. You do unofficial or official visits in the summer. So you're basically, you're going to lose that month. And then even when you have vacation in July, you still have to pick up that phone for that recruit. All right. So are you really on vacation and can you really turn your phone off? Can you really go to a place with no cell service? I don't think you can do that in college. All right. Because recruiting is so important. Spring ball. You got spring ball in college. All right. And then you have all these visitors during spring ball. Before spring ball, you got junior days, right? Recruiting's 12 months out of the year. So for me, there's no downtime in college at all. That's the biggest downside of coaching college football. In the NFL, I got 6 weeks off in the summer. All right. We really didn't talk to each other at all. All right. Maybe text, but Nate Hackett, my head coach, he literally goes to a place with no cell service. He's like, yo, don't hit me up once we leave, mid-June. I'm out of here. I'll see you when we get back. Really go decompress because once we start this season, all right, it's a grind. You got me? So we really got away and took time with our families and things of that nature. And we were truly off. There's no phone to pick up when it comes to recruiting and things of that nature. And then the off season is really a piece of cake. I mean, if you don't make the playoffs, think about it. My last game was, I think, January 8th this year, and we didn't make the playoffs. The Super Bowl isn't till the first week, let's say, of February. So naturally, that could be a month off right there. We had a month off until Sean Payton got hired. So if you think about it, that's another free month. Even I told you we get 6 weeks off. And then in the off season, we were mainly working 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. or Tuesday through Friday. And really, like, you can do a mini vacation on 3-day weekends. You know what I mean? And on those weekends, you're really off. Like, you're not doing recruiting visits. You're not on the phone with recruits. So you're really off. Even when you got like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, these different phases in the off season where the players can come back. So it's kind of like our spring ball in the NFL. The players can only be in the building for 4 hours a day. So that's not even that much. The practice was like an hour. I'm like, man, this is nothing. I was shocked because in spring ball, you got long practices. It's a grind, right? So again, if the players can only be in the building for 4 hours a day, I mean, that makes it pretty easy for us as far as coaches to be efficient in our day and get home at a reasonable time, right? So again, man, I really definitely enjoyed the off the field portion of the NFL for sure. Just the time off that you have and being able to enjoy time with your family, being able to travel, being able to turn off that switch a little bit, at times and just get away from football completely. I did enjoy that. But the seasons are now very different. And there are some similarities, but in the NFL, like, preseason's 3 games and there's 17 games. That's 20 games before the playoffs. That's a long grind there that we had. And with Russell Wilson being our quarterback, I mean, we had a Monday night game, 2 Sunday night games. We had a Thursday night game, and we had a game in London, which is an 8-hour time difference. So, I mean, switching time zones and playing on these different days and having less time to prepare for that many games, it was hard. There was one night after our first game versus Seahawks, we had 6 days to prepare for the next one because it was a Monday night game. I only slept I slept for 2 hours. All right. And I'm literally sitting there questioning my whole life's existence at that point. I'm like, is this worth it? So there's there's a give and take on both sides, I think, because in college, you can't just do football. You have to recruit, so you're kind of splitting it down the middle a little bit as far as how you're using your time. But like in the NFL, we're doing all football all day. So that does get tiring, a little bit, to where in college, at least you have a change up. And if you're a social guy like you are, Troy, like, you enjoy that. You might enjoy going on the road, talking to some coaches and just, having that back and forth. I know I enjoyed that portion of it to an extent, but just seeing the difference between the time commitment in the off season is what made the biggest difference in my mind.
Yeah, I was thinking about something when you said about the study about the the rich and the poor kids. I can remember what I was doing during COVID. Now I was driving for Uber and Lyft. I was making funnel cakes, and I was taking online classes for my doctorate.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I couldn't pass the class to get my dissertation, so I just said, all right, I'll pause this for now. But one thing I found out was this, and this was during all the racial turmoil and everything. The worst people. Some of the worst people live in the best neighborhoods, and some of the best people live in the worst neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. I would go into every court in Richmond. And it would be just people just trying to get to work. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming in here. But some of the people in the best neighborhoods were the worst people. And
trading places.
Yeah, it is. It's true, man. That's a great movie. I love Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy's the GOAT. He's the GOAT.
Well, here's why that's so important. I've coached at every different type of school. Cortland was a blue-collar type of school. Columbia University, obviously, is preppy and very rich.
White collar.
Yeah, white collar for sure. Villanova, white collar, just a little step down from that. Glenville State, that was a grind. It was a little grimy, right?
It's a whole different side of a mountain.
Yeah, whole different ball game. We're recruiting a whole different type of kids, single parent, junior college, all that stuff. So to me, trading places is an important analogy because I always try to use that. And I always tell people, like, when I'm at Villanova, Like, hey, if I'm recruiting a black kid, I'm like, so I got a kid from Richmond, Jalen Jackson from Thomas Jefferson.
Great player.
From Thomas Jefferson. Who
Player.
in the hell would think that a kid from Thomas Jefferson would fit in at Villanova, right? I went down there and I told him, I'm like, hey man, like you're from the hood, like that's
he don't even know where Villanova is because I don't
Yeah.
even know where it is. What state's it in?
It's in Pennsylvania, right outside of Philadelphia, maybe 20 minutes, and it's in a town called it's in Villanova, but it's in a town called like Radnor, basically. And Radnor, man, it's on the main line, one of the richest real estate markets in the whole country. So there's not, to my point, there's not a lot of black people out there to not beat around the bush. Mm-hmm. So bringing this kid from Richmond, from the hood up there, look, this is where I come from. So I'm like, hey, dude, like there ain't gonna be a lot of black people that look like you up there. But you are going to have an opportunity to get a life-changing degree, all right? So at the end of the day, if you can get up here and kind of assimilate yourself to this environment, kind of get, in a situation that you're uncomfortable with a little bit and kind of learn how to maneuver within that, this is going to help set you up for the rest of your life because that's what the world is. But if you just want to stay local, man, go to Richmond or go to where you're comfortable, you're never going to grow. And my thing about trading places as a kid like Jalen Jackson academically, barely got him into Villanova. But he's thriving right now. Why is he thriving? Because he traded places. He's not in that environment that he was in when he grew up. He's not in the environment he was in high school. He could do whatever the hell he wanted in high school, in that school, man. Not at Villanova. As soon as he got there, I was on him. If he was late to class in summer school, I was on his ass. And I had to let him know, like, things are going to be done differently here. And it took him a while to kind of get used to that. Like, he was very defensive and had a hard time adjusting. But, man, I went and saw him a few months ago, actually, and biggest smile on his face. He sounds like a grown man, real articulate, and is really going to be a successful guy out in this world now, and it's going to be able to move through both worlds, the hood and the great schools. So I think it's important, man, because you got to think, if you flip that on its head and think about a rich kid, can he go survive in the hood? Probably not, right? So there's really something special, man, about some of these guys that come out of these tough environments and that are still able to be successful and keep a positive mindset. That takes a lot of work. That's why I made it out. And some people I grew up with didn't. That's why Eddie Royal made it out. Eddie Royal, for us, set the bar for me. Like I grew up with Eddie since I was 10 years old. And we all did the same things all the way up until about 8th grade. Eddie kind of started separating himself. And he got deeper into football than everybody else. We were all really good at football and basketball our whole life, but he started kind of going off to the side, started lifting weights, stop hanging out with us for a little bit. And it was about 10th grade where I'm like, all right, I could see what Eddie's doing. He's kind of ascending. I want to move over there. So I started, separating myself and trying to make sure I was hanging around with people that could help me get to where I needed to be. And I just think it's important to change your environment, man. That could really change your opportunities for success as well. I think AAU-wise too. I played AAU growing up. I played all over the place, man. People that I know that stopped playing sports in about 7th to 8th grade, they're the ones that are struggling, in life and didn't finish high school. So I think if you get out here and see enough of the world, man, it really gives you a great opportunity to just know what's out there and get different perspective on how to be successful.
Yeah, I've been studying Bruce Lee.
Oh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, so like AJ Hampton, who's the receiver coach at VMI, I think he was at West Virginia State after maybe 2 seasons ago. He came recruiting seniors. And I was like, dude, you're special. I was like, you're going to move up fast. And he gave a presentation about, be like water, which is Taoism is Bruce Lee. It's like water when it's in a teapot, it's the teapot. But when it's in the cup, it's the cup. And he talked to our players about this. And, he went to Morgan State. And then by the time we got to the clinic last year, which was in February, he's at Virginia Tech. So, like, AJ went flying. But I always tell the players, I get this from Mark Marrow, who's a pro wrestler, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. But Mr. Beast, I think, said it best. He said he wanted to be a bodybuilder. He wanted to get in shape. So he surrounded himself. He said this on Max Friedman, the guy that does artificial intelligence. He's Russian. He said he wanted to be a bodybuilder. So he surrounded himself with bodybuilders. Why? Because they work out and they eat right. He said, surround yourself with people you want to be like. It's the cheat code to life.
Yeah.
Wow. Jim Tim, surround yourself with people you want to be like. It's the cheat code to life. That's Mr. Beast. He's a billionaire.
Yeah,
man.
man.
It's exactly what you're saying. Be water. Be water. Yeah. That's why Bill Clinton was the greatest politician, because he could go to any church and he could be like you. He could kiss anybody's baby. I mean, some people are chameleons. Some people are hustlers. Here, I want to say this to Jim Tim. Jim Tim, this is Jay-Z talking. All right, not me. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans. Yeah.
And Jay-Z also said, learn how to move in a room full of vultures, right? So at the end of the day, I think you made a great point. As far as that's why recruiting so important in college, because there's those guys that can connect with anybody, but because there's also guys that can't connect, So that's why it's always important to have recruiters on your staff, because those are the guys that are outgoing and that can connect with black, white, rich, poor. It just makes you more valuable, in my opinion, at the end of the day.
Yeah. So who's the best? Who's the best you've ever been around?
Coach?
In that, no, in being a chameleon and being a recruiter and being a salesman.
Well, you use the word salesman. I don't like that word.
Why?
I never sold anything recruiting. I don't believe in
selling's all about enthusiasm. People got to buy into you. They got to buy you.
So my biggest thing with recruiting for me is to be myself. All right. Because I never want to present an image that is fake. Like, this is what you see is what you get. Like, this is how I act right now. And when you get on our campus as well, some people don't, sell dreams out there and lies and aren't realistic and fake offers and all, all these things. And at Villanova, man, we didn't do that. We offer maybe 30, max 40 people a year. Everybody, at all positions combined, because we never wanted to have 10 offers out for one position. You know what I mean? Like, when I took DBs, I usually went 4 for 4, 3 for 4, 3 for 5. 1 year I went 5 for 6. We're really playing this thing slow and trying to do it right. So we didn't have to pull offers. And if we offered you, it meant something, versus some schools. I mean, they just throw them around like they're cake. But I never sold anything. I just told the facts and the truth. Hey, Villanova is a great school. All right. I'm real confident that I could develop you into whatever it is I'm taking you for. I wouldn't be taking you, like some kids that say, Coach, man, how do I know I should come to camp? I'd be like, dude, I'd tell you not to come to camp if I didn't think you had a shot. I'm that honest to a fault. Hey, don't come to camp. You don't have a shot. I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to waste your money. I'm that guy. Not a lot of people are out here doing that. So to me, I've never been a salesman, and to recruit with a salesman, it makes me cringe. That guy, say I'm being genuine with a recruit, and then I'm working with somebody who comes in from the side, being a salesman. Hey man, you're the number one recruit, man. You're great. That makes me cringe. You know what I mean? Because you're not the number one recruit. You're a good player and we want you, but let's not set that expectation that you're gonna be coddled and just put on this pedestal every day, man. Like, you got to come to work, you know. So the best guys that I've been around to me is somebody like Anthony Poindexter when it comes to recruiting. Like, Poindexter doesn't sell; he's a good dude. That's why people want to play for him. That's why people want to be around him, because he's just a great person. He's easy to talk to. He's not selling anything. He's just being himself. He's a dude. He was a hell of a player. All right, way back when. He's been successful in this profession, coaching wise. What does he have to sell? He's already at Penn State, right? What is there to sell other than, hey, Penn State's a great school? You know, we're producing pro players. Like, you either want to be a part of that or you don't. And if you don't want to be a part of that, that's fine. I'll find somebody else that wants to be. That's my thing. So I'm not a seller. Some people sell and some people have to sell. But one thing about me is I'm just never going to change, and I'm never going to sell. I'm always going to be honest. I'm going to be truthful. And I understand and I get it. You know, as you move up in this profession, J.C. Hall, he's a guy I've recruited from. I coach with. So his brother, Ryan Hall, played with it at Concord. He'll tell you, I've never went to his school and sold anything. I always would go down there and I tell the kids exactly where, and you've been in the room with me as well. I've always been like, hey, this is exactly where we have you. All right. If you were the top guy, I'll tell you that. And that would come with an offer. But if not, we worked everybody out. So you had to either come to camp or we wanted to work you out in person, whether it's at your high school or I'd meet you at another camp. But I never invited anybody up from Richmond, all right, that I didn't think that had potential for us to offer. I never did that. I'd say, hey, do not come because that's too far of a drive. Go to a school that really wants you and that's recruiting you. So I don't know, man. Anthony Poindexter recruited me when I was in high school. I had a grades to go there, but he was one of those guys that I never forget when I was in that chair. And then as I see him on this side now, I was just with him, you know, about a month ago. But to me, what only thing that pops up in my head about him is how good of a person that he is and the energy that he has.
He was recruited by Danny Wilmer. Danny Wilmer was the greatest recruiter in UVA history. He's the reason that George Welsh was so successful. I mean, he recruited Anthony Poindexter, Danny Wilmer, and Al Groh didn't keep him. I had Coach Groh on for 2 hours. I love Coach Groh. He's the best. But Danny Wilmer, I've never met him, but everybody loves Danny Wilmer. Do you know Coach Wilmer? Have you ever heard of him, Coach?
No.
Well, ask Coach Poindexter.
I'm 36.
Ask Coach Poindexter about him. Coach Poindexter will tell you about Danny Wilmer.
I will.
Yeah, I've talked to over 120 coaches since January. And one of the first podcasts I did, a coach told me, Troy, I'm having a hard time, you know, at this job I'm at. You know, these kids are telling me that I can't relate to them, you know, that I'm not like them. I don't look like them. I'm trying to change them. And I kind of went on a mission to try to help, you know, this coach. And one thing I found out was that all the great coaches are genuine. Like, they just are who they are. Like Bill D. Bill D was Bill D.
Bill D, man. Yeah.
I mean, Coach Mike Smith. He's Mike Smith. He's from, you know, Southwest Virginia. He's the Hampton Crabbers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's Chris Beatty. Chris Beatty's Chris Beatty. And he's been Chris Beatty's the same Chris Beatty. But the one thing that really got me about Chris was when he said that those receivers in his room, two $20 million guys, and now I guess he's got another one with that Texas Christian receiver, man. He was my favorite guy, huge. He said that the guys in his room said that this was the first time like that the coach actually talked to coached about life.
Yeah.
Talked to him about life. And that's what you said today.
Yeah,
you said you didn't want to do an X's and O clinic. You wanted to do something bigger.
Yeah. Some coaches are hiding that, you know, that's part of it. Like, some coaches are hiding, you know, to be honest, and they're not really exposing themselves as human beings. They're just coaches. You know what I mean? And any room that I'm in, it's just a lot deeper than that. And that's why I've been able to be successful. You know, that's the number one reason I've been successful is because of the relationships that we've had in those rooms have been genuine and deep. I've always shared and opened up myself to the players. I've never just coached them and said, hey, do this, do that. And it's just never always been about football. I mean, we're talking about their girlfriends, you know, all these random things, because to me, again, that's what's most important. It's just building those relationships. So I'm just trying to think of anybody else, just recruiting wise, that I've been around that I think has been just ridiculously good. Azar, up at Boston College. I've known Azar. Azar brought a bus full of kids when I was at Glenville State. He drove them up there, whole van full of kids. He's the DB coach at Boston College now, co-defensive coordinator.
He
But
was at Friendly. What high school
was
was
at
he
Friendly
at?
High School. So this is 13 years ago. He's driving a bus of kids to school in West Virginia in the middle of nowhere just so that he could help them. That's just who he is. He's not selling anything. You got me? So now he could look back on it and say, hey, man, like the guys that have been under me have gone on to play Division I. They've gone on to play in the pros. This is what I have been able to accomplish in my career so far. But at the end of the day, it's because he's a genuine guy and really tries to help those guys. So to that point, it's like every high school coach is not doing that. Like sometimes when Friday's done, sometimes that you're not gonna hear from them until Monday. So at the end of the day, like I just feel like, again, being genuine when it comes to this whole recruiting process is the most important thing. I just don't Mike London, you know, these types of guys that I think about.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Coach Talley at Villanova. I mean, he was the awesome guy. He knew how to make you feel important. And he let you know he was going to treat you with respect when you got there, and he did that. You know, it wasn't he recruited you one way and you got to the campus and he was a whole different person. He was genuine throughout the whole process. And really, that was our secret sauce at Villanova, was our whole staff. That's how we recruited. Mark Ferrante now, the head coach up there now, one of the best people I've met in my life. One of the best people I've met in my life. And he is one of the most genuine people as well. Like, he's not a seller. He's been there 34 years now, I think. So when you're at a place for 34 years, all right, it's not that hard to like say, hey, I've been here 34 years. This is a great place. I don't think that's selling.
Yeah, I mean, they love it. They love it. He's been there for 34 years. He ain't going nowhere else.
Yes.
You know, he ain't going to the next job. I mean,
yeah, selling to me is saying, hey, come to my camp. Come to our camp. You'll get an offer. That's selling. I never said that. I never said that. I say, hey, I'd be like, hey, I want you to come to camp. And the kid would be like, well, coach, am I going to get an offer? I'd be like, look, dude, number one, I'm not here. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think you had the potential to get one, but you got to come earn it. So it's a realistic conversation. It's not a lie. It's not a piece of bait to say, hey, come up here and you'll get an offer. I don't know that. I think you're good, but I also think all these other guys I'm going around to see are good too. So let's throw y'all all in the pot and see who comes out as the best. Are you willing to compete? All right. So what ended up happening at Villanova is one of the latest guys that I got before I left, really good player. I think he can go to the pros if he can stay healthy, but it's like a 6'2", 215 corner. You know, this dude, second in New Jersey in hurdles, like he could run. His mom and him told me straight up, like, coach, we really want to come to Villanova, but like you have these players that are going to go to the NFL. Like, where would I fit in? Am I going to play? And I'm like, I stopped them right there in their tracks. I'm like, hey, look, like iron sharpens iron. Like that, this is what it is. I wouldn't be recruiting you to come play DB at Villanova if I didn't think you had potential to play in the pros. That's my standard there. So if you hop in this room, maybe you play right away, maybe you don't. Christian Benford, my safety with the Bills, he started his whole career. Jaquan Amos just got picked up by the Ravens. He started from game one his whole career. I've had a lot of guys play as true freshmen, but that doesn't mean that you're going to play as one. You have to come in and earn that position. And that kid was hesitant about signing with us. But once we really had this conversation again, I was being honest with him. He committed to us, and now he's a dude. All these players that he was afraid of, they're all gone. And now it's his time to shine. So, and I did play him as a true freshman in roles. So at the end of the day, recruiting, man, if you could be honest with guys, that can get you a long way. But I also do understand how hard it is for us coaches when we go back to the office with recruits that we like. It's not all cut and dry. You don't always get to take the guys that you want. Yeah,
no doubt. So is there anything else that you would like to say on the podcast that you haven't said? You wanted to get deep, man. You didn't want to talk about X's and O's. We wanted to talk about life. We wanted to talk about it's bigger than football. So
if you had any football, I'm wide open.
Dude, I've been sitting in clinics for 2 days. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did 9 hours on Friday and 9 hours on Saturday. Like I'm not particularly an X's and O's guy.
Yeah,
I'm not. Anybody knows me knows. I mean, what you want to talk about? I run ISO to our sideline. Yeah, sounds like a good play. If it works, what we're gonna run next? Same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, what's on your heart?
Yeah.
To end us off.
I'll say this.
Podcast. I got a question.
Okay. Let's see.
What advice would you give a guy undrafted who still has aspirations of making it in the league, like a Kenny Thomason, D2 All-American lineman?
Again, I'm an honest guy. You ask that question, you get an honest answer. And so the reality is, number one, how old is this person? If he's over 24 years old, probably not going to happen.
He just left high school. He just left college. I'm sorry. He was a D2 kid. He's 6'5", 300-pound offensive lineman.
Yeah. So, number one, it's just not easy coming out of lower divisions, whether it's FCS, D2, or D3. Even FBS, it's not hard to make it to the league. But the reality is so the difference in in college and the pros is the pros, they pick you. You don't get to pick them. There's not so in college, there's a million colleges that you could pick from. NFL picks you. So at the end of the day, like if there's not already a lot of interest there, like if they're not already reaching out to your agent or you personally, then there's probably not a shot. I'm just being honest. This isn't like a charity league that you could just get into because you were All-American in college. Like they know who they are,
though, right? I mean, he could go to play in Europe, or there's some league he could play in, probably, maybe, right?
Yeah, I mean, he said the league. There's only one league.
Coach McNally, I said the league, and he goes, "What league?" And I was like, "The NFL, Coach." He was like, "Oh, I just wanted to know what league you were talking about."
Because there's a million now. But when it comes to the NFL, man, it's very hard, to really get in there. The best way I would say is there's like regional combines. One guy from ECU just posted his tape to Twitter and got picked up by the 49ers. But this dude had 88 catches at ECU.
He's Highland Springs guy.
Yeah, he's a dude. So, he's 6 foot. Like he's a dude. So he was undrafted, but I'm sure that people were interested in him. And he's gone through this process. If you haven't talked to any like scouts in the league at all yet, and you've already graduated, then it's not happening. But I will say to Troy's point, I have my defensive end from Villanova's playing in the XFL. I went to an XFL game, man, and it was fun. I had a great time at that game. One of my corners is playing in the USFL now. I've had a corner playing the CFL as well. At Villanova, one of our receivers went to play in like Germany. I had a linebacker go play in Germany. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of opportunity. For me, it's all about what's worth it. All right. The NFL obviously is worth it because you can make money, whether you're full-time on the roster or the practice team. You can make over $100,000. That's good for working half of a year, right? XFL, now I have to start thinking about my health. Is the amount of money they're paying me, worth a potential injury I may sustain? All right, because now I'm a grown man. You got me? And this is going to affect me for the rest of my life and my body. Is it worth putting my body through that for, I don't want to throw out random amounts of money. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how much they make, but let's just say they make $50,000. Is $50,000 enough to play professional football? For me personally, I'd say no. Because, man, every year you play this game, you're taking some years off the end of your life, no matter if you want to believe that or not. USFL, I would say the same too. CFL is a decent deal up there. You can make 100,000. You can make some decent money up there. If you go overseas, they pay for like housing, from what I understand, but you're really like getting a small amount to play in each of those games. So to me, that's not worth it either. Because again, for me, like, number one, the league got to have insurance. If it's not the NFL, does it have insurance? If it don't have insurance, I ain't doing it. Because a lot of people are playing in some of these arena leagues and things like that don't have insurance. So what if
like
you tear ACL? You're stuck with the bill. You know how much it costs to freaking pay for those things? And if you're pursuing football, you probably don't have a job. So you ain't got insurance. You got me? Yeah. So like, yeah, that's a real tough question. And I don't want to sound pessimistic, but it's just really hard to play in the NFL. And you really have to have a monster career, which that All-American person did. But, today's day and age, these scouts get to go see so many players at so many schools that there's very rarely like uncut gems out there. You know what I mean? They have a good idea of what's out there, and if they want to pursue that. So like if you're not talking to any school, if you don't have an agent that's talking to any scouts, probably a long shot when it comes to the NFL. But all those other leagues have better and more avenues to pursue football.
Right on, man. So what you thinking to end off? What do you want to say to the coaches that might be out there watching, high school guys?
Yeah, what I could do is just hit some quick philosophy points on some different things when it comes to football. Not necessarily all the way schematic, like I'm not putting up pictures of things, but just a few things I've been talking about with a few of the latest clinics I've done, is like I said, we're real successful this past season, or in the 21 season at Villanova, finishing the regular season #1 in the country. And one thing that, again, the number one thing that helped us out was our relationship with each other. We had a bond and a cooperation that was second to none. I'll start with that. But one of the other things that made the players respect me and our staff so much more is that they knew that we were going to try to play as many players a game that was possible. And so what we told them is, hey, guys, we're going to be multiple, right, with our fronts, our alignments, our packages, all that. So that we're able to get you guys on the field to do what you do best. And we actually averaged playing 24 players a game at Villanova in the 21 season. So if you think about it, I mean, we're basically, that's a lot of people. And we basically tried to play players to their strengths. That was really the key, because a lot of the times you don't realize it, but you kind of have guys on the field just to have them on the field. You're not necessarily having them do what they're best at doing. You might have somebody on the bench that's better at doing a particular thing than a starter you may have. Like, you may have a guy on the bench that's a really good pass rusher, but he can't hold up against the run game because maybe he's too thin. Well, just make sure he's in on those passing downs, 2nd and long, 3rd down. make sure he understands that he has a role, and his role's as important as anybody. You have a nose guard. Nose guards in our defense, we played them in a 0 shade, a 2-eye, and a 1 technique. So a lot better on first and second down for those nose guards. We took those guys off the field on third down, and we put in a better pass rusher. And in turn, that got him more rest at that. So everybody had a role. 21 season, I had a young DB that was more complete than my starting corner, but my starting corner was really good at man. So we put him into the boundary. But like on third down, if we wanted to run zone calls, we just packaged it where we took him off the field and put that young guy on the field because he was better at playing zone. So just playing to these guys' strengths is the reason to me that we were able to be so successful. But in turn, we were able to play multiple players. Our fourth corner, we played at free safety on third down. And he was a freshman that turned down a Rutgers offer to come to Villanova. So if you think about it, he's an immensely talented player, but I have pro players, both of my corners signed in the NFL that year. So how am I going to get this kid on the field? Hey, you got to be the third corner, all right? And then I'm going to play you on third down. I'm going to play you at free safety. So I'm going to make sure you have a role so you understand that you're important. And then these guys are going to leave, and you're going to step right into that starting corner role. But if I just kept him on the bench, he would have transferred out and left. So it's about, how can I retain these players over the year? I'm not about guys transferring in and out every year. We didn't have that issue at Villanova. Another point I would kind of make is just, and I'm not going to go into too much detail about third down, but I think like third down is near and dear to my heart. I love scheming and coaching it up and all that. I'm not going to get into too much detail on that, but my thing about third down is focus on first and second down. Focus on first and second down. Put yourself in great situations on third down. All right? That's how you're successful on third down. All right? The longer the down and distance to go on third down is, the better chance you have of being successful. I don't want to be coaching against 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 1. Those are the hardest, things to defend. And now you're in a run defense, right? So on 3rd and 1 to 2, again, I'm in run defenses. 3rd and 3, I would say, I game plan 3rd and 3 separately. And basically what I wanted to see there is if 3rd and 3 fit in with 3rd and 1 to 2, like if they were heavy and running the ball, or they were like kind of 50-50-ish or had a higher run percentage in that window, we would just say, all right, let's just call it 3rd and 1 to 3 this week. If they were passing the ball, like let's say 60% of the time on 3rd and 3, then we would go 3rd and 1 to 2, and we would go 3rd and 3 to 6. So we kind of manipulated that 3rd and 3 window. And if 3rd and 3 was 50-50, truly, to be honest, we just kept it by itself and put a few pass calls in there, a few run calls, and just mixed it up. That's kind of how we game plan third down there. Tidbit on third down, I'd encourage you guys to just invest and look at loose coverage. And I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on it, but really just playing your players off and forcing the quarterback to throw the ball in front of you. So if you look at my my Twitter page and just scroll down a little bit, I think I did a clinic where I talked about loose coverage. So there's a real detailed, maybe 4-minute thing there. If you're interested in that, that could really help you out on third down or third and long, 3rd and 11 plus, or even 2nd and really long. It was one of the biggest revelations I had in the 21 off season. And I'll let you go ahead and look at that. Another situation. So red zone. All right, we'll talk red zone. So, my thing in the red zone, like number one thing is like, hey, obviously you don't want people getting down in the red zone, but my goal is if they do get in the red zone is to force them to kick field goals. All right. So it's not the end of the world if they get down to the red zone, but let's force them to kick field goals. Because I always show players a chance to score chart. So if y'all have a chance to score chart, you need to learn how to use that in your coaching. So the way that I use it in the defensive coaching is to say, okay, guys, if the ball is on the -1 through -20 yard line, all right, there's a 3% chance of an offense, 3% chance for the offense to score. Very unlikely that they're going to be able to drive 80 plus yards and score. But if they're in the red zone, if you flip the field completely, it's a two out of 3 chance to score, 67%. So to me, let's keep them out of that area of the field. Let's make them work their way down the field, because the further they are from that red zone area, the harder it's going to be technically for them to score. And if they do get down there, let's hold them to field goals. For us, that's a winning formula. All right. Red zone philosophy in general, I'm going to just give you a few points, and I'll tell you how I create play calls. All right. Every call that I have has a purpose. So it might be a first and second down call. It might be a short yardage call. It might be a good third down call, or a 3rd and 4+ third down call, right? So real exotic, passing situation call and things of that nature. I think every call has to have a purpose. So my point to you is, like, on third down, like, everything that's in that window has a purpose. First, second down has a purpose. Red zone has a purpose. So in the red zone, our philosophy, number one, is to say, like, we're going to play more zone than man down in the red zone. I'm not a big believer in playing a lot of man coverage. Because, Troy, shit, man, you got the Philly specials, you got the picks and rubs.
Look what happened in the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl, you got the fades, the Zen motion down the stacks.
Yeah.
The motion to the rub. There's just so much stuff that the sprint out rub. There's so much stuff that you have to defend down there. High crosses that if you're playing man, you're just running through traffic and asking to get picked. I love playing zone, being able to have vision and leverage in the flats and things of that nature. If I did play man-to-man in the red zone, all right, mainly 4-man rush stuff to where we could kind of bracket the back and have a guy leveraging him on either side. Or if it was a 5-man pressure, making sure that whoever was covering him was directly on top of him. Because if he free released, we didn't want him to be able to catch the ball, turn up and score touchdowns, right? So we didn't want anything to be easy down there, all right? Because if you think about it, up the field in first and second down, I love blitzing the running back if he's offset. I love blitzing the running back. But down in the red zone, I have to blitz away from the running back sometimes so that whoever's covering him could be exactly on top of him to fit the philosophy that I just mentioned. Another thing, like, some people are like, 4-man rush or cover zero in the red zone. I hate cover zero in the red zone because you're going to get picked and rubbed. You need that third guy, to provide body presence and things like that, and to be able to play in and out over the top of that situation. So I'm not a big cover zero guy. I like cover zero on, like, 3rd and short. I like cover zero on 4th and short. I like cover zero when the game's on the line or a big stop needs to be made, potentially, either running it or bluffing it. All right. So, but I'm not a big red zone. We're just going to be calling cover zero down there. I don't think that's smart. It's really hard to stop things when they start stacking receivers and doing rub routes and things like that. We even went on a streak at Villanova from the fourth game. We played Penn State in the 3rd quarter. We didn't give up a passing touchdown until the playoffs. So, like, 6-7 games down the road, 225 snaps. And it was through that mindset of using that philosophy in the red zone and only calling plays that fit that. Other than that, just play calling philosophy in general. Ever since I got into coaching, my coach at Cortland, he always would say, hey, man, when you're calling plays, you got to put the bullet in the gun and shoot. And what he means is, like, as a defensive coach, you cannot be predictable to these offensive coaches. So like some coaches believe in like, hey, you got to be simple and don't do too much. That sounds good. But when that offense figures out what you do, you're toast. So for me, I believe in being multiple, having different packages, different alignments. In those packages, having all the alignments be the exact same, but running different calls out of those packages is always something that's big for me, because I believe that the offense has the advantage because they know where they're going. But I want to neutralize the advantage by giving a presentation, right? By showing them something, all right, and then post snap moving to what I'm actually in, so that they have to figure out what we're doing post snap. To me, that's the defensive advantage, is disguise. All right. So our disguise mainly is too high on first and second down, is a lot of what we did. That actually helped us cut out a lot of RPOs. If you're going one high, quarterback knows where to go with the ball. I could probably do 3 tidbits on RPOs and then I'll be done. All right. We made a drastic improvement from 2019 to 21 with RPOs. I think we gave up like 6.1 yards per RPO in 19, and then we got that down to like 4.7 yards and per play in 2021. And one thing we did is, again, we fought to keep it too high shell, again, because we didn't want the quarterback to know where we were going pre-snap. The second thing I'll tell you is we use bounce technique. So what bounce technique is like really controlling the read. So there's usually like that Sam linebacker, right, that lines up in between the number 2 receiver to the passing strength and the tackle in a 2x2 formation. That guy that lines up right in the middle, all right, we played him in bounce technique. So essentially he was real patient in his alignment. He didn't move until he knew whether the ball was handed off or thrown out. But I have again, if you go to my my Twitter page, I just gave a clinic on bounce technique from that position. So I won't go in a lot of detail here. But we also did it for our quarter safeties as well. So our quarter safeties, like if I'm a quarter safety, my best read is a tight end that's attached in front of me. If he blocks an outside backer right in front of me, in college, I was taught to come downhill right now. And I just don't feel like you could play like that this day and age, because you might be getting read by the quarterback, right? And there's a glance coming right over your head. So for us, we use bounce technique. We bounced twice in place before we went downhill, therefore forcing the quarterback to give the ball to the running back, and then we rallied to the run game. So understanding how to control the read, to me, is very important. And then just third is just playing more coverage with man principles. So I'm not saying playing man-to-man. I'm just saying play coverage with man principles. Because if you're playing a lot of zone, there's going to be a lot of open windows for RPOs where receivers are going to be running past zone windows, and they'll be able to catch the ball, and there's going to be space for them to run as well. So everything that we did, Villanova, we wanted to be tight on the body of every route that we got and challenge. We wanted to challenge every route that we got. And we played a lot of press bail to bluff like we were playing man a lot as well. But that's really all I got, man. Just wanted to leave a few football things out there.
Yeah, I loved it, man. I enjoyed our conversation, man. It was awesome. And let me know where you end up, man.
So I know where I'm going. I just, working on the contract right now.
Right on.
I'm still getting paid from Denver till next March. So
it's a good problem to have.
It could be worse, I would say. But we're just working out details in my contract right now to just make sure I get benefits, to say the least.
Right on.
I'll be able to say kind of where I'm going here, probably hopefully in the next week or so.
That's awesome. I appreciate you, Coach. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate you, man. Really, really love what you're doing. I think it's awesome. When I see something going down that I think's good and respectable, I reached out to you. I'm like, I want to be a part of that.
Yeah, and, I appreciate it, man.
Just contribute.
I love it, man. Thank you.
All right, man. You take care, brother.